the Apache woman over 2 meters tall. No man could handle her until a rancher arrived. The sun was rising over the wide, open plains of the Apache lands, painting the sky with streaks of orange and gold. Birds chirped softly, and the gentle wind moved the tall grasses in waves, like a quiet ocean. Among these plains, a figure moved with grace and confidence, her shadow stretching long across the earth. This was Nakamis, the Apache woman who had become the subject of stories in every nearby village. But she was no ordinary woman. Towering over everyone around her, she stood more than 2 meters tall, a presence that was impossible to ignore. Her height was the first thing people noticed, but it was the way she carried herself, with quiet strength and dignity, that made her unforgettable. Nakamis had grown up in this village, learning from her parents and elders the skills that would later make her legendary. Her father was a respected hunter, known for tracking deer across the plains, and her mother was skilled in gathering herbs and making remedies from the land. From an early age, Nakamis had spent her days running through the fields, climbing rocks, and learning how to shoot arrows with precision. Her size gave her strength, but it was her determination and intelligence that made her truly exceptional. Even as a young girl, she could carry baskets that others struggled with, and she could outpace boys much older than her. Life in the village was simple, yet full of challenges. Every family contributed to the community, and survival depended on cooperation, skill, and courage. Nakamis took these lessons to heart. She learned to hunt not just for food, but also to provide for those in need. She could track a rabbit silently through the woods, blend into the shadows, and strike at just the right moment. She could lift heavy logs to build shelters, or help carry water from the river without tiring. People often said she had the strength of 3 men combined, and there was a sense of awe whenever she moved through the village. But strength and skill came with their own difficulties. Nakamis' size and abilities made her different from other women. Many tried to approach her with romantic interest, but she had grown up seeing men underestimate her or feel intimidated by her power. Some laughed nervously at her height, others challenged her to feats they thought would impress her. She met each attempt with patience and honesty, but she did not allow herself to be treated as a prize or a curiosity. Nakamis valued respect above all else. She wanted someone who could understand her, not someone who simply wanted to prove themselves. Even with all her capabilities, Nakamis felt a quiet loneliness. She loved her people and her land deeply, but there were times when she wished for companionship that matched her spirit. While she could hunt, run, and climb better than almost anyone, she longed for someone who could connect with her mind and heart. This longing was gentle, a soft whisper beneath her bold exterior. It was not weakness, it was simply human, a desire to share her life with someone who saw her as more than just her strength or her height. The village respected her immensely, but this respect was mixed with caution. Parents would warn their sons not to tease or challenge her, and children would watch from a distance, amazed by her speed and confidence. Nakamis was kind and generous, but she also had a clear sense of boundaries. She did not tolerate disrespect or foolishness, and anyone who tried to take advantage of her quickly learned that she was not easily swayed. Her reputation grew with each passing year, and stories about her began to spread beyond the village. Travelers and traders who visited would speak of the giant Apache woman who could lift heavy logs, run like the wind, and hunt with unmatched precision. Despite the tales that traveled far and wide, Nakamis remained humble. She did not boast about her abilities, nor did she seek admiration. Her focus was always on living fully and contributing to her community. She helped elders carry firewood, guided children as they learned to track animals, and shared her knowledge of herbs and remedies with those who needed them. She became a bridge between generations, someone who could inspire young people while also providing practical help to the older members of the village. Her days were full of activity, from dawn until the sun dipped below the horizon. Mornings were spent hunting or gathering food. Midday was often reserved for tending to the village, repairing structures, or helping with communal tasks. Evenings were quiet, filled with storytelling, laughter, and music. Around the fire, Nakamis' presence was commanding yet comforting. People felt safe around her. They knew that with her nearby, challenges could be faced and dangers could be met. Her strength was not just physical. It was also a source of emotional support and courage for everyone who lived there. Nakamis had her own small corner of the world, a modest shelter she built herself near the edge of the village. It was simple but strong, with walls of woven reeds and a roof that withstood the winds and rains. Inside, she kept the few personal items she cherished: a set of hunting knives her father had given her, a small collection of herbs for healing, and a woven blanket her mother had made. Each item told a story of her life, of lessons learned, and of the people who had shaped her. She often sat by the window in the evenings, looking out over the plains, thinking about the world beyond her village. Though she had everything she needed for survival, Nakamis, thoughts often wandered to dreams she could not yet fulfill. She wondered what it would be like to meet someone who did not fear her, someone who could accept her for who she was. She imagined conversations with a companion who could make her laugh, share in her adventures, and respect her independence. It was a quiet hope, one she did not speak aloud, but it stayed with her, like a small ember waiting to be kindled. The other villagers, while respectful, did not fully understand her heart. They admired her achievements and her courage, but they assumed that her independence meant she did not want connection. Many young men who approached her did so with fear or bravado, hoping to impress her with physical feats or grand gestures. Nakamis would listen, smile politely, and then gently decline. She had learned that true connection could not be forced, and she refused to compromise her standards for the sake of attention. One spring morning, Nakamis was walking along the river, her bare feet moving silently over the smooth stones. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and fish darted beneath the surface. She paused to watch a heron take flight, admiring its grace and freedom. In moments like these, she felt at peace with herself and the world around her. She could sense the rhythm of life, the balance of strength and gentleness, and the importance of respecting both. Yet, even in this serenity, she could not ignore the quiet ache of solitude. As the seasons passed, Nakamis continued to grow in skill, wisdom, and reputation. She became more than a remarkable woman. She became a symbol for the village, a living example of courage, independence, and integrity. Children looked up to her, not just because of her size, but because of her character. She taught them that strength was not only measured in physical ability, but in patience, kindness, and the courage to stand firm in one's values. Her story, even at this stage, was only beginning. Nakamis' life had been shaped by the plains, her family, and her own determination, but the world beyond the village held experiences she had yet to encounter. Unknown to her, a man would soon arrive who could see her as she truly was, not just as a towering figure or a legend, but as a person with a heart, dreams, and the capacity for connection. This moment, though far away, would eventually change the course of her life. For now, Nakamis continued to live fully, embracing the challenges and joys of each day. She was strong, capable, and independent, yet she remained open to the possibilities that life might offer. Her story was one of courage, perseverance, and quiet longing, and it would soon take a turn that no one in the village could have predicted. As the seasons changed, the legend of Nakamis, the towering Apache woman, grew even more widespread. Stories of her strength, skill, and courage traveled beyond the boundaries of her village. People in neighboring villages spoke of her with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Some claimed she could lift a full-grown calf without effort. Others said she could outrun the fastest horse on the plains. Children listened wide-eyed as elders shared these tales around the evening fires, while men often whispered to each other, unsure whether to admire or fear her. Despite the growing stories, Nakamis remained grounded. She never let pride cloud her actions. She understood her abilities were gifts, not trophies. She continued her daily routines, hunting for food, gathering herbs, and helping her community. Yet, as the stories grew, so did the number of men who attempted to win her attention. Some approached with gifts, offering finely woven blankets, carved ornaments, or rare finds from distant villages. Others tried to prove themselves with feats of strength, attempting to wrestle her or show off their hunting skills. Nakamis greeted each attempt with a polite smile and gentle words. She did not reject anyone out of cruelty, but she made it clear that admiration alone was not enough to earn her respect. Many men misunderstood her patience for hesitation, believing that persistence would eventually sway her. They underestimated the depth of her independence and the clarity of her judgment. She was not a prize to be won, but a person to be understood. Some men became frustrated. They could not fathom why a woman so strong, so skilled, and so remarkable would not choose one of them. Their frustration sometimes turned into mockery or teasing, but Nakamis remained unshaken. She had learned long ago that strength was not only physical, it required patience, wisdom, and the courage to stand firm in one's values. No amount of showmanship or bravado would change her mind. Among the villagers, her reputation became a double-edged sword. While she was admired for her abilities and independence, her height and power intimidated many. Young men often avoided her entirely, fearing embarrassment or rejection. Even those who wished to impress her felt unsure of themselves. Nakamis noticed the hesitation and confusion around her, but she chose not to let it bother her. She focused instead on the tasks that mattered, ensuring the village thrived, protecting the young and the elderly, and honoring the traditions of her people. Her days were busy and structured, filled with both labor and learning. Early mornings were often spent hunting with her father or other skilled hunters. She could move silently through the woods, tracking deer, rabbits, or wild turkeys without making a sound. Her skill with the bow was unmatched. Arrows flew swiftly and true from her hands, finding their targets with ease. Hunting was not merely about survival, it was about respect for the animals and the land. Nakamis understood the balance of life, taking only what was needed and honoring the spirits of the creatures she hunted. Afternoons were often dedicated to helping the village in practical ways. She assisted elders with heavy lifting, repaired structures that had been damaged by storms, and guided younger villagers as they learned essential skills. Children were fascinated by her strength and agility, following her at a careful distance as she moved gracefully across the plains. Nakamis taught them lessons about courage, responsibility, and respect, showing by example how to live with honor and integrity. Evenings brought a softer rhythm. Villagers gathered around fires to share stories, sing songs, and pass down traditions. Nakamis' presence was commanding yet comforting. People felt safe with her nearby, knowing that she could protect them if danger arose. But her presence was more than physical protection. It was a symbol of courage, resilience, and the importance of living with dignity. Around the fire, she would often listen more than she spoke, absorbing the wisdom of elders and the laughter of children. Despite the admiration and respect she received, Nakamis felt the quiet pull of loneliness. Her independence and strength, while extraordinary, often left her feeling isolated. She longed for someone who could see her as a whole person, not just a figure of awe. Someone who could meet her gaze without fear or competition. This longing was gentle and quiet, like a hidden stream beneath the surface of a rushing river. It did not control her actions, but it was always present, waiting for the right moment to be acknowledged. One particular spring, when the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the plains were alive with new life, Nakamis noticed the arrival of travelers from distant lands. Merchants, hunters, and wanderers passed through her village, bringing news of the outside world. They marveled at her height and strength, often exaggerating tales of her feats to make the stories even more remarkable. Some tried to approach her with curiosity, but Nakamis treated them with the same calm patience she offered to all. She did not seek attention, nor did she shy away from it. She simply moved through the world as herself, confident and unshaken. It was during this time that the number of men attempting to court her increased. Some brought elaborate gifts, hoping to capture her favor. Others attempted acts of strength, believing that if they could match her abilities even briefly, she might be impressed. Nakamis met each gesture with a quiet, firm rejection. She explained politely that admiration alone was not enough, that respect and understanding were far more important. Many left disappointed, unable to comprehend that a woman could be both extraordinary and selective. The village began to take notice. Parents warned their children not to tease or provoke her, and young men were advised to approach her with humility if they wished to learn from her. Children continued to watch from a distance, fascinated by her speed, strength, and courage. Nakamis became more than a remarkable individual. She became a living example of integrity and self-respect. She showed the community that power and independence did not have to alienate others, but they did demand honesty, patience, and genuine understanding. Nakamis' skills were not limited to physical feats. She had learned from her mother the art of healing with herbs and natural remedies. She knew which plants could soothe wounds, ease pain, or help cure illnesses. She often shared this knowledge freely, helping those in need without seeking reward or recognition. Her understanding of the natural world deepened with each passing season, and she became a source of wisdom for both the young and the old. Her connection to the land was profound. She understood the movement of animals, the changing of the seasons, and the subtle signs that indicated weather or danger. She could predict when a storm was coming, when the river would rise, or when the herd of deer would move to a new area. This awareness made her not only a skilled hunter, but also a protector of her people. The village relied on her knowledge to survive and thrive, and she embraced this responsibility with quiet pride. Even as she contributed to the village and shared her skills, Nakamis remained aware of her personal desires. She dreamed of companionship that went beyond admiration or challenge. She wanted someone who could meet her heart, not just her strength. This desire was not a weakness, it was an acknowledgement of her humanity. It shaped the way she interacted with others, the patience she displayed, and the boundaries she maintained. And so, life continued for Nakamis, filled with work, learning, and quiet reflection. The world outside her village seemed vast and full of possibilities, yet she remained focused on the present, on the community she loved, and on the skills that defined her. She knew that one day, perhaps, someone would arrive who could see her as she truly was, not just as a legend, but as a person with hopes, dreams, and a heart open to connection. For now, the days passed with the rhythm of life on the plains. Nakamis continued to grow stronger, wiser, and more confident. She faced challenges with courage, guided others with patience, and moved through her world with grace. The men who tried to win her heart learned lessons about respect, humility, and understanding, even if they did not succeed. And Nakamis, while admired and sometimes feared, remained true to herself, waiting for the moment when her quiet hope would meet the right person. One bright morning, as the sun rose slowly over the plains, a new presence appeared on the horizon. Dust swirled in the warm breeze, and the faint sound of hooves echoed across the open land. Villagers paused in their work, curious about the stranger who approached. This man was unlike anyone they had seen before. He was tall, strong, and carried himself with a quiet confidence. His name was Thomas, a rancher from a distant land, traveling in search of a place to settle with his small herd of cattle. Thomas had heard stories of these lands and of the people who lived here. He was drawn not just by the fertile plains and open skies, but also by tales of the Apache community and their remarkable way of life. He had traveled for days, following the trails marked by rivers and hills, until finally he reached the village at the heart of the plains. As he rode closer, he could see the village bustling with activity, children playing near the river, women tending to gardens, and men repairing fences and huts. But there was one figure that caught his attention immediately, even before he learned her name. She moved with a quiet grace, her long shadow stretching across the ground. Her movements were confident, almost effortless, as she carried bundles of wood back to the village. Thomas had never seen anyone like her. Towering above everyone else, her presence was commanding, yet there was a gentleness in her gestures that made him pause. He dismounted his horse, feeling a mixture of curiosity and respect. This was not the kind of woman who would be impressed by bravado or strength alone. Nakamis noticed the stranger too. She had seen travelers pass through before, but there was something different about this man. He did not stare or speak loudly to announce his arrival. Instead, he observed quietly, taking in the rhythm of the village, the work being done, and the people around him. His gaze was steady but not intimidating. Nakamis felt a flicker of interest, though she kept her guard up as always. She had learned over the years that not everyone could be trusted, and first impressions could be deceiving. Over the next few days, Thomas began to integrate himself into the village life. He helped repair fences for the herders, assisted in tending to livestock, and offered his skills wherever they were needed. He did not try to challenge Nakamis or show off in front of her. Instead, he worked quietly, earning the respect of the villagers through his actions. Children watched him curiously, elders nodded in approval, and even some of the young men who had previously attempted to impress Nakamis took note of his demeanor. Nakamis observed Thomas with a mixture of caution and intrigue. Unlike the others, he did not attempt to compete with her, nor did he seem intimidated by her height or strength. He treated her as an equal, acknowledging her abilities without feeling the need to dominate or boast. For the first time in many years, she felt that someone might actually understand her, not just her physical presence, but the depth of her character and the quiet strength of her spirit. One afternoon, while repairing a section of the riverbank to prevent flooding, Thomas and Nakamis were paired together. It was the first time they had worked closely, and at first there was a cautious silence between them. Nakamis expected him to falter under the physical work or to make clumsy attempts to impress her. But Thomas moved with steady precision, matching the rhythm of the labor and offering thoughtful suggestions. He lifted heavy stones, guided the placement of logs, and even helped Nakamis carry a particularly large bundle of branches without hesitation. By the end of the day, Nakamis felt a rare sense of partnership. She had worked with many men before, but none had approached the tasks with such quiet respect and efficiency. They shared a few words as the sun began to set, speaking of the land, the river, and the importance of protecting their resources. Thomas spoke with humility and thoughtfulness, never assuming that he knew better than her, even though he was a skilled rancher. Nakamis found herself listening more than she usually did, intrigued by his perspective and the calm confidence in his voice. Over the next weeks, Thomas continued to show his respect for both Nakamis and the village. He learned the techniques of hunting and tracking from her, asking questions and practicing diligently. Nakamis was impressed by his willingness to learn, as he did not take offense when corrected or guided. He approached the land with care, showing awareness of the delicate balance between nature and survival. Villagers began to notice the bond forming between them, though it remained unspoken. Thomas' presence seemed to bring out a lighter, more relaxed side of Nakamis, one that few had ever seen. Evenings became a time for quiet conversation. While other villagers gathered around fires, Thomas and Nakamis often found themselves walking along the river, observing the water, the animals, and the changing sky. They shared stories of their lives. Thomas spoke of the struggles of managing a ranch far from home, the lessons learned from hard work, and the value of patience. Nakamis spoke of her childhood, her training, and her hopes for the future. They discovered shared values, a respect for the land, a desire to help others, and an understanding that strength was measured not only in physical ability, but also in character. The villagers began to whisper about the unusual partnership. Some were curious, others skeptical, but all were impressed by the harmony between the two. Nakamis, once seen as untouchable and isolated, began to show a softer side around Thomas. She laughed more freely, shared her knowledge willingly, and even allowed herself moments of relaxation in his presence. It was clear to anyone watching that a bond was forming, one built on mutual respect rather than fear or competition. One day, as a spring storm approached, Thomas and Nakamis worked together to reinforce the village shelters. The wind howled across the plains, and rain began to fall in heavy sheets. Many villagers retreated to their homes, but these two stayed outside, securing beams and tying down roofs. Their teamwork was seamless. Thomas lifted heavy timbers with Nakamis' guidance, while she used her strength and agility to tie ropes and adjust supports. By the time the storm passed, the village was safe, and both were drenched but smiling. Nakamis realized that this was the first time she had felt completely understood in her skills, and Thomas saw the depth of her courage and dedication firsthand. Their partnership continued to deepen. Nakamis began to trust Thomas more with each passing day, sharing insights about the land and the animals that even other villagers did not know. Thomas, in turn, offered practical advice and assistance, showing that he valued her knowledge and respected her independence. Together, they became a team that balanced strength, wisdom, and care. Nakamis started to feel something she had not felt in many years, a sense of companionship that did not threaten her identity or independence. The turning point came one quiet evening, as they sat by the river watching the sun dip below the horizon. Thomas spoke of his travels and the challenges he had faced, revealing a depth of character and resilience that matched Nakamis' own. She realized that she no longer felt the loneliness that had quietly accompanied her for years. Here was a man who did not seek to control her or compete with her, but who valued her for exactly who she was. In that moment, Nakamis felt the first spark of hope that perhaps someone could truly share her life, not as a rival or admirer, but as an equal partner. Word of their growing bond spread quietly through the village. While no one dared to speak loudly about it, the elders and children alike noticed the change. Nakamis, once solitary routine, now included moments of collaboration and conversation with Thomas. He had earned not only her trust but also her respect, which was far more important. Their partnership became a living example for the village. Strength combined with respect, courage paired with humility, and independence met with understanding. As spring gave way to summer, Thomas' presence continued to influence life in the village positively. He helped implement better systems for water management, improved the methods of cattle care, and learned more about sustainable hunting from Nakamis. Together they worked to ensure that the village prospered, not just surviving but thriving. Nakamis, once a figure of awe and isolation, now experienced the joy of true partnership. She realized that strength did not mean standing alone, and independence did not require solitude. For the first time in her life, Nakamis felt that her heart could be at ease. She had found someone who respected her fully, who matched her in character if not in size, and who shared her values and vision. The plains remained vast and beautiful, filled with the rhythm of life and the lessons of nature, but now they also held the promise of companionship, trust, and shared purpose. Nakamis knew that her story was entering a new chapter, one where she could embrace both her independence and the joy of connection, a chapter shaped by the arrival of a man who truly understood her. As summer settled over the plains, the bond between Nakamis and Thomas grew stronger with each passing day. The villagers began to notice subtle changes in Nakamis' demeanor. She was still the towering, fearless woman they had always admired, but there was now a warmth in her eyes and a lightness in her step that had not been there before. Thomas' presence seemed to balance her formidable strength with gentle companionship. It was a partnership built not on competition, but on respect, trust, and shared purpose. Each morning, they worked together on the daily tasks of the village. Nakamis would lead them through hunting expeditions, showing Thomas the subtle signs of animal tracks and teaching him how to move silently through the tall grasses. Thomas, in turn, brought his knowledge of ranching and livestock care, helping to manage the animals that grazed near the village. While Nakamis was strong and skilled, Thomas' practical methods and patience complemented her abilities perfectly. Together, they became a team that combined experience, intelligence, and hard work. The villagers, who had once whispered about Nakamis' isolation, began to view the pair with admiration and curiosity. It was unusual to see a man and a woman work together so seamlessly, respecting each other's abilities without one trying to dominate the other. Children would watch them in awe, learning that true partnership was not about showing who was stronger, but about combining strengths to achieve greater results. Even the elders nodded approvingly, realizing that Nakamis had found someone who understood her heart as well as her skills. One afternoon, a sudden storm swept across the plains. Dark clouds rolled in, and wind began to tear at the village structures. Villagers rushed to secure their homes and protect their livestock. Nakamis and Thomas worked tirelessly, braving the elements to reinforce shelters and tie down supplies. Nakamis' strength allowed her to lift heavy beams into place, while Thomas, quick thinking, ensured that no part of the village was left vulnerable. By the end of the storm, the village had weathered the tempest with minimal damage, thanks largely to their teamwork. The shared experience of facing the storm brought them closer. Nakamis began to trust Thomas not just with tasks, but with her thoughts and feelings. She spoke to him about her dreams, her fears, and the quiet loneliness she had felt for so long. Thomas listened with patience, never interrupting, never dismissing her experiences. He shared his own life story as well, tales of his travels, the struggles of managing his ranch, and the lessons he had learned from both success and failure. They discovered that they shared many values: respect for the land, a desire to help others, and an understanding that true strength came from courage, patience, and integrity. Their partnership was tested in small ways as well. Some villagers were initially skeptical of Thomas, unsure if he truly understood Nakamis or if he would respect her independence. Young men who had previously tried to court her felt a mixture of jealousy and confusion. Nakamis, however, remained confident in her judgment. She had learned to recognize genuine character, and Thomas had proven himself time and again through action, not words. Slowly, the villagers began to accept the bond between them, seeing that it brought harmony rather than discord. In addition to their work, Thomas and Nakamis began to share quiet moments of reflection. Evenings were often spent walking along the river, where they observed the movement of fish, the calls of birds, and the subtle changes in the landscape. These walks were more than just relaxation. They were opportunities to learn from one another. Thomas admired Nakamis' connection to the land, the way she could interpret signs in the environment that others missed. Nakamis admired Thomas' thoughtfulness and his willingness to adapt and learn. Their respect for each other deepened with every conversation, every shared task, and every quiet moment. During this time, Nakamis also began to see changes within herself. She had always valued her independence and strength, but she realized that true connection did not threaten these qualities. Thomas did not seek to dominate or control her. Instead, he complimented her, offering support while respecting her autonomy. This realization was freeing. For the first time, she felt that companionship and independence could coexist. She no longer feared that sharing her life with someone would diminish her power. Rather, it enhanced it, creating a partnership built on balance and understanding. As they continued to work and grow together, they faced challenges that tested both their physical and emotional strength. One day, a fire broke out in the dry grasslands near the village. The flames spread quickly, threatening both homes and livestock. Nakamis and Thomas sprang into action, organizing villagers to create fire breaks and guide animals to safety. Nakamis' speed and agility allowed her to move quickly through dangerous areas, while Thomas coordinated efforts and ensured that every person and animal was accounted for. The fire was eventually contained, but the experience reinforced their reliance on each other and the strength of their partnership. Beyond these challenges, there were moments of simple joy and discovery. They shared meals, telling stories around small fires and teaching each other new skills. Thomas learned how to weave baskets and make remedies from local herbs, guided by Nakamis' patient instruction. Nakamis learned about cattle care and land management, appreciating Thomas' practical approach and knowledge. Through these exchanges, they built not just a functional partnership, but a deep friendship rooted in mutual respect and admiration. Nakamis' heart began to open in ways she had not expected. She found herself laughing more freely, sharing her thoughts without hesitation, and feeling a sense of belonging that she had not experienced in years. Thomas' steady presence and understanding nature allowed her to embrace vulnerability, something she had rarely done. She realized that this bond was built not on fear, competition, or admiration, but on trust, shared purpose, and emotional connection. As the seasons continued to change, their relationship became a model for the village. People began to see that strength did not require isolation, and independence did not preclude companionship. Nakamis and Thomas demonstrated that true partnership was about understanding, patience, and respect. The villagers, once skeptical, came to admire not just Nakamis' abilities, but also the harmony she had found with Thomas. Their story began to inspire others, teaching lessons about collaboration, empathy, and the power of genuine connection. In one particularly quiet evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of orange and purple, Nakamis and Thomas sat together on a small hill overlooking the plains. The wind whispered through the tall grasses, carrying the scent of wildflowers and earth. They spoke of hopes for the future, the dreams they wished to pursue, and the ways they could continue to help the village thrive. Nakamis realized that her life, once defined by solitude and independence, had grown richer through this partnership. She no longer felt the ache of loneliness. Instead, she felt supported, understood, and valued in ways that extended beyond physical strength. Thomas, too, recognized the depth of their connection. He admired Nakamis not just for her power, but for her wisdom, courage, and unwavering sense of integrity. He knew that their partnership was rare, built on mutual understanding rather than expectation, respect rather than fear. He felt fortunate to have met someone who could challenge him, inspire him, and walk beside him as an equal. As months passed, their bond continued to grow. They faced new challenges together, from tending to crops and livestock to protecting the village from natural threats. Through every task, every conversation, and every shared experience, their trust and affection deepened. Nakamis discovered that strength was not just about lifting heavy burdens or outrunning danger. It was also about allowing oneself to be seen, understood, and supported. Thomas learned that courage in partnership required patience, empathy, and the willingness to meet another person as an equal. By the end of summer, it was clear to the village that Nakamis and Thomas were more than just friends or collaborators. Their partnership had become a symbol of balance, demonstrating that respect, understanding, and shared purpose could create bonds stronger than fear or isolation. Nakamis, once solitary existence, was now enriched with companionship, and Thomas had found someone whose courage, intelligence, and heart matched his own. Together, they showed that true connection was not about domination or submission, but about partnership. Nakamis could remain independent and powerful while embracing the joy and support of companionship. Thomas could offer his knowledge and care without diminishing her strength. Their bond became a quiet legend in the village, one that inspired others to seek balance, understanding, and respect in their own relationships. As the sun dipped below the horizon on the final days of summer, Nakamis and Thomas stood side by side, looking out over the plains they had come to love and protect. The world around them was vast, filled with both challenges and opportunities, but together they felt ready to face whatever came next. Nakamis had found a companion who saw her fully, not just as a towering figure or a legend, but as a person of depth, courage, and heart. And Thomas had found someone who inspired him, challenged him, and shared his vision for life in harmony with the land and the community. Their journey was far from over, but they had discovered something rare and precious, a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. The plain stretched endlessly before them, but now they faced it together, side by side, ready to embrace the adventures, challenges, and joys that lay ahead. As the seasons shifted from summer to autumn, the bond between Nakamis and Thomas had become stronger than ever. The village, which had once viewed Nakamis as untouchable and distant, now saw a remarkable transformation. She remained the towering, courageous woman everyone had always admired, but she now shared her strength with someone she trusted completely. Thomas had become more than a companion. He was a partner, a friend, and a steady presence in her life. Together, they faced the challenges of the plains, bringing balance, wisdom, and hope to their community. The mornings were filled with the rhythms of village life, yet every day was infused with a sense of shared purpose. Nakamis and Thomas worked side by side, tending to the land, caring for animals, and assisting the villagers with tasks both big and small. Nakamis' strength and skill, combined with Thomas' experience and knowledge, created a synergy that made them a formidable team. The villagers began to rely on their leadership, seeking advice on hunting, farming, and problem-solving. It became clear that together, they could accomplish more than either could alone. One crisp autumn morning, the two of them set out to repair a section of the village's irrigation system that had been damaged by recent rains. The work required both careful planning and physical effort. Nakamis lifted heavy wooden beams while Thomas secured them into place, coordinating with other villagers to ensure the water would flow properly to the fields. Their collaboration was seamless, a perfect blend of strength, skill, and strategy. Watching them work together, the villagers could see that their partnership was built on more than necessity. It was a true meeting of minds and hearts. Beyond the work, Nakamis and Thomas shared moments of quiet reflection. They often walked together along the river, discussing plans for the future, sharing memories, and learning more about one another. Nakamis spoke of her childhood, of the lessons she had learned from her parents, and of the dreams she had quietly held close to her heart. Thomas shared his experiences from the distant lands he had traveled, the hardships of managing his ranch, and the values he had carried through his life. Each conversation strengthened their connection, revealing not only their compatibility, but also their mutual respect and admiration. Challenges continued to test their partnership. One day, a wild herd of deer wandered dangerously close to the village, threatening crops and property. Nakamis and Thomas sprang into action. Nakamis, with her exceptional agility, guided the animals away from the village, while Thomas coordinated villagers to ensure safety for both people and livestock. Their teamwork was flawless, demonstrating not only their individual skills but also the power of their collaboration. The villagers, who had once been skeptical of Thomas, now recognized his wisdom, patience, and ability to complement Nakamis' abilities. Their successes were celebrated, yet their greatest triumph was the bond they had formed. Nakamis no longer felt the isolation that had accompanied her for so many years. She had discovered that true companionship did not diminish her independence. Instead, it enhanced her life, providing support, understanding, and shared joy. Thomas, in turn, found a partner who challenged him, inspired him, and shared his values. Together, they had created a partnership that was rare and extraordinary, built not on admiration alone, but on trust, respect, and genuine connection. The bond between them began to influence the entire village. Seeing the respect, harmony, and shared purpose between Nakamis and Thomas, villagers began to re-examine their own relationships. Young couples learned that strength and independence did not have to mean separation or conflict, and that mutual respect and support could create lasting bonds. Elders found hope in the lessons demonstrated by the pair, seeing that the future of the community could be built on collaboration and understanding. Children looked up to them, inspired not only by their physical abilities but by the example of emotional intelligence, courage, and kindness they exhibited. As the weeks turned into months, Nakamis and Thomas continued to face challenges, both expected and unexpected. Harsh weather, unpredictable wildlife, and the responsibilities of leadership all tested their resolve. Yet, they met every challenge together, drawing strength from their trust in one another. Nakamis' courage and physical prowess, combined with Thomas' wisdom and patience, allowed them to overcome obstacles that would have been daunting for anyone alone. Their partnership was a living example of balance, demonstrating that independence and connection, strength and compassion, could coexist in harmony. One evening, as the sky glowed with the warm colors of sunset, Nakamis and Thomas stood on a small hill overlooking the village. The wind carried the scents of autumn leaves and the river below. They spoke of their hopes for the coming season, of ways to improve the village, and of the life they envisioned together. Nakamis realized that the quiet ache of loneliness she had carried for so long had been replaced with a sense of peace, belonging, and excitement for the future. Thomas felt the same. He had found a partner whose heart, mind, and spirit were perfectly aligned with his own. Their life together became an ongoing story of shared adventure and learning. Thomas taught Nakamis techniques for managing larger herds and improving agricultural productivity, while Nakamis continued to teach him the secrets of the land, from reading animal tracks to finding medicinal herbs. They built structures together, planned for seasonal changes, and guided the village through both everyday routines and emergencies. Every task, whether small or monumental, strengthened their bond and deepened their understanding of one another. As autumn deepened, the couple began to look toward the future in a more permanent way. They planned ways to improve the village's long-term sustainability, discussing ideas for protecting crops, maintaining water supplies, and ensuring that future generations could thrive. Nakamis, leadership, and Thomas' experience created plans that combined tradition with practical innovation. Their vision was not just for themselves, but for the entire community. The villagers began to see them as true leaders, whose partnership ensured both stability and progress. Beyond their work, Nakamis and Thomas found joy in the small moments of life. They shared meals by the river, laughed at the antics of children, and enjoyed the simple pleasure of each other's company. They celebrated successes together, comforted each other through setbacks, and learned to rely on one another in ways they had never experienced before. Nakamis, once a figure of legend and isolation, now experienced the richness of human connection, trust, respect, and love that had been absent from her life for so long. One of the most memorable moments of that autumn came when the village gathered to celebrate the harvest. Nakamis and Thomas worked together to ensure that everything was prepared, from decorations to the distribution of food. During the celebration, villagers acknowledged their contributions, expressing gratitude for their guidance, courage, and leadership. Children danced around them, elders offered blessings, and the community came together in a spirit of joy and unity. Nakamis and Thomas stood side by side, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that their partnership had not only strengthened their bond, but also strengthened the entire village. As the harvest festival ended and the first signs of winter approached, Nakamis reflected on her journey. She had grown up strong and independent, admired for her courage and feared for her unmatched abilities. Yet she had also felt the quiet ache of solitude. Thomas' arrival had changed everything, not by challenging her or attempting to dominate her, but by offering companionship, understanding, and shared purpose. She realized that true partnership did not weaken her. It amplified her strengths and brought joy, trust, and stability to her life. Thomas, too, felt the impact of their bond. He had traveled far in search of land and opportunity, yet what he had found in Nakamis was far more valuable than any territory or resource. He had found a partner whose courage, wisdom, and integrity matched his own, someone who could face the challenges of life together with patience, skill, and heart. He understood that their partnership was rare, built on mutual respect, equality, and shared vision rather than admiration or competition. By the time winter settled across the plains, Nakamis and Thomas had fully embraced their shared life. They continued to lead the village, care for the land, and nurture their relationship. Their story became an enduring lesson for the community. Strength and independence could coexist with love and companionship, and respect and understanding formed the foundation of the strongest bonds. The legend of Nakamis, once a tale of awe and fear, had grown into a story of partnership, courage, and the transformative power of trust and connection. Together, they faced the challenges of life with courage and wisdom, building a future that was rich with possibility and grounded in respect. Nakamis no longer felt the loneliness that had once shadowed her days. She had found someone who truly understood her, who shared her values, and who walked beside her as an equal. Thomas had found a partner who inspired him, challenged him, and complemented his strengths with grace and skill. The plains stretched endlessly before them, filled with both beauty and uncertainty. Yet, Nakamis and Thomas faced each day with confidence, knowing they had each other. Their partnership was not just a bond between two people. It was a force that strengthened their community, inspired those around them, and demonstrated the power of mutual respect, trust, and shared purpose. The story of the towering Apache woman and the kind, patient rancher became a lasting legend, one that would be told for generations, reminding everyone that true connection is built on equality, understanding, and the courage to meet another person fully and openly.